came out here was I wanted to get away from the congestion of the city. When we could reach out one window and we'd eat off the table in the house next door. So it was kind of, I wanted space. And there was lots of space here in those days. Ours was the only house in our part of the community when we built it. And she came along only because she married me.
We had driven around the city and decided that this was a good place to live. We liked the area, and new houses were being built, so we thought this was a good place.
Oh, we moved to Pepper Pike in 1971. We moved here from Chicago, and I was in my 30s at that time. Well, we came here because of the schools. Really, when we first came to Cleveland, we lived in East Cleveland, and that's where our kids started school. And as they got older, we were looking for better schools for them. And we always considered the possibility of sending them to private schools, but we couldn't afford to at that time. So we came to Pepper Pike. Orange had a great reputation, and we've been here ever since.
We moved to Pepper Pike from Cincinnati back in 1968 and bought a house on South Woodland Road. And as I recall, we moved in under conditions that would not be permitted today. The house wasn't complete, but we had 4 children, and they had to get started in the Orange schools. So we sort of sneaked into the house, and no one knew we were living there for a while. And the contractor finished the house while we were still living in it. Now, you couldn't get away with that today.
Well, we came to Pepper Pike actually 49 years ago. We had just been married, actually, and we were looking for a nice home in a nice area. At the time, we thought we'd have children, and we inquired about the school district of the Orange School District, and it was very highly recommended. So I was busy working downtown, and I left it in the hands of my wife, my new wife, to find a nice home, a nice location, and you might want to say something about what you did, dear, about looking for a location in Pepper Pike.
Well, it was a stroke of luck because the home was just being completed, a new home, and this was a great attraction. And it was the best decision, besides being married to Stanley, was finding a home in Pepper Pike, because it has been a great advantage, especially now in our old age. I hate to say that, but our long-time involvement, because the city has been a support system, the school has been wonderful, the library wonderful, and we've been very active in this community and loved every minute.
When we moved onto South Woodland Road, there were 26 acres of nothing behind us. And of course, that's all filled in now. And so the main change has been the complete development, housing-wise, of the area. And other than that, the schools certainly have changed. We participated in the project for a new high school.
Most significant construction has been in the school system. The Orange schools have developed significantly, and particularly in the Moreland Hills campus, the areas to the south. That's quite a large complex now that simply wasn't here when our kids were in school.
What I remember about Pepper Pike itself, there was a brick road at that time. It was Pepper Pike Lander Road wasn't even paved. It was a brick road, which was, and as I said, the dust and the almost primitive surroundings at first were rather intimidating. But as soon as the trees were rooted and the place became a beautiful campus, people would come and walk. In fact, we had a lake, and we had a problem for a while with people coming and setting up their little camp stools around the lake and fishing.
Well, it's changed, of course, in that the number of homes that are in the community has multiplied. I think when we moved out here, there are probably less than, maybe 1,500 homes. And now, of course, we're up to almost a total of 6,000 people who live here, so we probably have close to 3,500 homes in the community. There are very few areas of vacant land now. When we moved out, there were large tracts of land that were vacant. The big highway, I-271, that crosses South Woodland and Shaker Boulevard, and Fairmount Boulevard was not here. We first moved out here. There was a problem finding places to shop. Hope knows a little bit more about that.
Well, there was no Heinens, that's for sure. In fact, there was really nothing. There was a corner mom and pop on Chagrin Boulevard where you could buy very few things. We had to drive down to Warrensville Center. By the time you got home, the ice cream melted and so forth. But it was well worth it because it's become a community that we're very proud of. We're proud of the service department, we're proud of the government, we're proud of, in fact, Stanley was part of the government.
Well, clearly there's been some population growth and home building, but we've seen other changes in the fact that there's been an influx in our Chagrin, Lander, Pine Tree area of more office buildings and businesses coming in. I'm pleased that we can consider ourselves the financial center of the East Side because so many financial institutions of one sort or another have located there. And so we have that aspect. And then I think the main changes is a number of services that, as a city, we have developed and are providing to the residents. And so that's been our primary change. Plus the fact, I think, we have, because of its beauty and because of its affluence that we do have, we've been able to create a very livable and desirable city, and it keeps getting rated by the Cleveland Magazine as the #1 or among the top 10 suburbs every year, and so we're proud of that fact too.
Settled in what is now Pepper Pike. In those days it was the Orange Hill community because it was the highest point in the area. That's why they called it Orange Hill. And they raised 6 boys on the property, and we lived where the farm of one of those boys previously existed. The Van Sweringens, as everybody knows, came out here to make an ultra Shaker Heights community, and they bought up most of the property, which is now Pepper Pike. So our relatives sold their farm. There were 3 family farms in addition to the original one. And when we bought the property back in 1957 or 8, we've just paid up the back taxes because the Van Sweringens went into bankruptcy. And what we know about the area is what I've heard from my grandfather and my mother, both of whom lived here. And Ginny's family came a little earlier, about 1836, wasn't it?
Yes, it was my great-great-grandfather. They moved here from Devonshire, England, and settled at what is now across from the Garfield Memorial Church. And they had a farm. They were very prominent in the area. They founded the Garfield Memorial Church, and there is a stained glass window in the church with John and Ann Stoneman's name on it. They had all the land that Orange Schools are on now. They owned all of that.
They gave it to the school sister.
Pepper Pike has changed quite a bit in the last 60 years. There were a lot of empty lots, and one of our favorite things was the brick roads. Lander Road was all brick all the way through, and it was just fun to drive on that road. So that was good. And then,
Well, let's see, it was a village, and the population grew to the point where it could become a city. And there wasn't any particular celebration at that time. It was just simply an observance that we now could qualify as a city, and there were certain benefits government-wise if you were qualified as a city.
People or characters or things that they've done.
Well, there are a lot of interesting ones, fortunately. We have our television stars like Tim White and Scott Newell and Ted Henry and Fred Griffith. We've got some fascinating people of the history who have been here a long time, like the Edelsteins, the Biggers, the whole slew of Bigger family here, most of them over in Fairmount. In fact, that area has been affectionately known as Biggerville. There's so many Biggers over there. In fact, I succeeded one of the Biggers on council. His brother was an Orange School Board president. Another brother also on the board. Their father came back here in the 20s. So they go back a long time. You have, we use the term character.
We have a long, long history. And I'm going to go back to 1535, when St. Angela Merici founded the Ursuline Sisters in Brescia, Italy. And from her foundation of starting the Ursuline Sisters, who were going to be educators of young women, her philosophy was, if you educate a woman, you educate a family. And this spread through Italy and moved into France. One foundation was in Boulogne-sur-Mer, and at Boulogne-sur-Mer, there was a young priest who was the chaplain there, and his name was Father Amadeus Rapp. Sometime after that, he was appointed the first bishop of Cleveland. So he came here to establish the Diocese of Cleveland in 1847. And he realized the help that he needed, and having known the sisters there in France, he went back to the Ursulines and asked them if they would come to Cleveland to help him, because he had no help. He was trying to do everything himself, preparing children for First Communion and all the kinds of things that they do. So it took a couple of years, but there were 5 women who came. 4 were sisters and 1 laywoman from Boulogne-sur-Mer in France to Cleveland in 1850. And they established a school downtown on Euclid Avenue around 6th Street. In 1871, the superior of the sisters, who was Mother Mary of the Annunciation Beaumont, and you'll recognize Beaumont because Beaumont School is named after her, she started Ursuline College. She realized the need for education of women beyond the elementary and secondary school.
well, of course, Miller's Drug, which was right at Lander Circle there, which had a soda fountain and a telephone, which was wonderful. The kids used to go down there and telephone each other. So that was really fun because there were no cell phones then, of course. So they were hanging out there having sodas, candy, and you could walk mostly to that. And then the second most popular area when we were here was the Pepper Pike Lanes, which was a bowling alley, which was right at the edge of Pepper Pike and Woodmere, right on Chagrin Boulevard there. And so everybody went bowling. That was a thing to do here. And then there was a Bob's Big Boy right next door. So that was where everybody went for breakfast. So you'd meet all your neighbors there for breakfast, or go home and take pies home. Then they had strawberry pies that were wonderful. So we enjoyed those areas.
So we tried very hard when I was on the council. We got close to that 5,000 person figure to try to keep it under 5,000. How do you do that? Well, we found out there were a number of students who were going to college, whose family home was in Pepper Pike. They're going to schools outside of Cleveland. and we questioned them to see if they actually became residents of these cities and were voting in those cities. If they were, they did not be counted as residents of Pepper Pike. And we, for several years, we were able to keep the number below 5,000 by just selecting out those students, as I say, that voted in the communities in which they were going to college.
Vision, voice, and values, voice, and vision.
Right.
And that's what we want to give the women who come to Ursuline. And in the interim, since we came out here, the college has expanded from a small liberal arts women's college to multifaceted campus. How many programs are there now altogether?
Yes,
there are
there's
a lot
so
of
many.
graduate programs.
So many, and we
And
have about 1,600 students, where at the other one it was about 400, so it has quadrupled.
It remains a village until it attains a certain population, which time it becomes a city. And that rule, as I recall, is 5,000, maybe 6,000, I think it was 5,000. And as a village, the county, Cuyahoga County, has certain responsibilities, such as clearing the roads, taking care of certain parts of the infrastructure, all of which is no longer the responsibility of the county when the village grows up, you might say, and becomes a city.
Keeping in mind the property out here, they learned from their advisors that there was going to be a sale of some property on Lander Road. So as early as 1928, they bought 50 acres of the land that now exists on Lander Road. And it was just before the Depression. You remember the crash was in 1929. So they were never able to use it, but we often wonder about the vision that they had to look to the future. And they held on to that property all those years, even though people criticized them for it and said it was, you know, unfortunate that they had done it. They really felt they had something there for the future. So in 1947, they purchased 52 more acres. The first part was on Fairmont Road, and then the second was the part facing Lander Road.
Well, when we first moved here, the high school was the old high school, which had many grades in it. And then in the 70s, they started building the new high school. In 1973, my son's class was the first class to enter in the 9th grade of the new high school. That's been very nice. And the central office was not there at all. There was no central office, so that was built when the high school was built.
Well, I imagine it's changed quite a bit. I can't really say what it's like now. I haven't been back for a while. Our youngest daughter graduated in '92. So.
What was it like when you were working here?
When
you were involved in PTA?
Oh, well, it was wonderful. It was just a wonderful school. Wonderful. It had so much to offer. It gave Orange gave the children a wonderful education. So they're doing very well now in their adult lives.
Well, we moved here in 1968. That's just about 40 years ago. But I first became interested in Pepper Pike when I began to teach here in 1946.
What subject did you teach here?
It was a 5th and 6th grade class. And it was so different at that time. There was one red brick building that stood on this site that housed all the grades from kindergarten through high school. I think there were probably less than 500 people in the entire school.
So was there any particular reason why you chose Pepper Pike?
They hired me. That was one good reason for coming here. And the pay was wonderful. It was $1,600 for a beginning teacher for the entire year.
Well, the school was a very popular hangout place. Our boys all played football here. And my wife was involved with the Football Mothers Club. And I remember when she used to make hamburgers and French fried potatoes with all of the other mothers, Mary Toops and Pearl Fishman and a lot of other ones. That was a great activity. Spent a lot of time here. And of course, Heinen's has always been a hangout place. You go to Heinen's and that's where you meet your neighbors and find out what's going on in the community.
Yes. The schools were the primary reason. We had been in a similar school district in Cincinnati. The kids were adjusted to a relatively small high school, and so this was the main attraction.
When it got out that we were moving to Pepper Pike, there were women who came who wanted to go back and finish their degrees. They probably had a couple of years of college, and then they married and had a family, and now they wanted to go back and either get teacher certification or complete a degree in some other field. And we began to accept them, and the number grew so rapidly because it was a very warm, accepting atmosphere. The faculty was delighted to have these adults. The students accepted them, and that wasn't the case in the larger institutions. In fact, they would almost be insulting, they said, when they went to ask if they could return to college there. So we had a large growth, pardon me, and we established, I remained as president for the first 3 years, and then I became the dean of continuing education, and that was a new department in the college, and it was for the women who were coming back, and that was the sole focus. And we started out with some non-credit courses, and then the first credit offering was a program called WIMS, W-I-M-S, Women in Management series.
Pepper Pike, the services from the City Hall are wonderful. They have they started recycling program in 1991, and that was one of the first in the area. And then that's been going on, and it's still wonderful. And they have wonderful trash pickup. They come right up to your house and pick up the trash. It's in the garage. They'll walk in the garage. It's very nice, and they're very cooperative. So we've been very happy with the police department. Has been exceptional. Anytime you call them, they're ready to help and do anything you want. That's
But you need to, that you have a code. You need to enforce them and maintain them in order to maintain the standards. I think one of the biggest changes we've made that I'm most gratified about is the fact that I've made quite an effort to improve the communications between City Hall and the residents. We've adopted a quarterly newsletter to the residents. I write rather frequently letters to the residents on a given subject or a series of subjects. And my thinking being that if you keep the community informed, there's less chance for misinformation or misunderstanding through either idle gossip or innuendo or poor press coverage. I think if we get all the facts out there, and to show that City Hall is interested and concerned and committed to provide the best services possible, I think that is a positive, and I think that's one thing that I feel I'm glad that I've done. I think it's an accomplishment that I think is paying off.
I think another way in which Pepper Pike has, I wouldn't say changed, I'd say evolved, has been in the variety and quality of the services that are offered to the residents.
The Pepper Pike Civic League has been in existence for over 50 years, and they try to help the government of Pepper Pike by holding meetings and around election time, so you can see who to vote for, and they give a scholarship to a high school student, and it's a very nice organization.
A community that we're very proud of. We're proud of the service department, we're proud of the government, we're proud of, in fact, Stanley was part of the government, right?
Yes, actually, About 25 years ago, I was elected to the city council in Pepper Pike. I was first appointed, there was a vacancy, and there was a rather contentious debate among the council people as to whether or not I should be appointed. I knew several people on the council. Catherine Eakin, one who was a very close friend. Bruce Akers at the time was a councilman. He's now our mayor, a close personal friend. And after all the debate, I was appointed, and then a few months later I ran for office. And that was an experience because I'd never before run for a public office, and I was relatively unknown in the community. I had a very important ally in that my wife, Hope at the time, was my campaign manager. And she stationed herself at Heinens. Heinens was there by that time. And she talked to a lot of people who were coming in and out and told them about me. And my father, who was very highly respected in the Cleveland community, made a lot of phone calls to people he knew in Pepper Pike. And Bruce Akers, who at that time was a councilman, also helped to enlist some of his Republican friends. I was then a Democrat, I still am a Democrat, and it was rather unusual for a Democrat to be elected in Pepper Pike because Pepper Pike at that time was mainly composed of people who were Republicans. But I did.
Basically, it is a residential community with, I think, just as I said before, excellent services. The real important thing about the community is that our government has been excellent. The city council, the mayor, and all the supporting services have been outstanding. So I wouldn't make any changes there. It's hard to think of a change that would be significant that I'd think about.
Years, and then in 1971, 2 years after I moved here, some friends approached me about running for the Pepper Pike City Council, which I did, and I served on that for a term. And then in '75, I was appointed to be the executive secretary to the mayor of Cleveland, so I had to resign Pepper Pike Council. You can't, in Ohio, hold two public offices. That went until '78. I came back on council in '79 and through 1991, and then when I was elected mayor, and I've been mayor since 1991.
Well, I was a member of the Pepper Pike Civic League, but that's not holding a political position, no.
What is that?
The Civic League is an organization of citizens that are concerned about government and that meet regularly to try and, if you like, offer a constructive addition to what the city council does. There's a member of the Civic League that will be at every city council meeting. The City League produces the Pepper Pike Citizens Guide every year, which you may have seen. It holds here at the schools regular civic meetings to discuss political issues in advance of elections. It's a very, very active group, and I think provides an extremely valuable service to the community.
Well, we've had a number of things, a number of services that we've employed. We have strengthened our police, fire, and service departments. We've innovated a number of services, like we've now instituted a shredding service here, a free shredding service, so people can turn in their documents and checks and valuable papers and have them shredded and therefore avoid identity theft. We were the first city in northern Ohio to institute a reverse 911 system where we can, by the touch of a button, broadcast to all residents who are signed up for it. An emergency notice automatic goes on their telephone, they pick it up, and there's the notice or the announcement. That's it. We have been pioneered through our fire department in a emergency preparedness training program in conjunction with the Red Cross, which we're making available free to all our citizens so that they're better prepared in the case of an emergency man-made disaster or natural disaster to help themselves and help neighbors and friends when our safety forces are out doing more direct work addressing the particular emergency.
We wanted bicycle paths, and I was on a committee that worked very hard to have bicycle paths, take just part of the tree lawn. The roads were very, very narrow. They still are narrow, and it's very difficult to walk. But now Pepper Pike has had a wonderful change in a park and a great walking area that connects with Beechwood, Shaker. It's excellent. We love it. And it's a great stride. And we don't mind the narrow streets anymore because we can walk in a safe area.